Smithfield Town Council, January 5th, 2022. Madam Clerk, will you lead us in the prayer and the pledge, please?
Lord, assist with thy Holy Spirit of counsel all those who are serving in positions of authority and responsibility.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Michelle,
Here.
Corriveau,
Yes, here.
Sahara,
Here.
Batney,
Here.
Beauregard.
Here. Open forum pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-6. We currently have two names on the list for open forum. Carol Ayala, if you want to.
Can we talk during when you're discussing the
Yeah.
folder?
Yeah, you're part of the committee, so,
Well, I was going to talk about it from the point of the land trust.
yeah, so the,
We're just talking now or when you're discussing?
well, Mr. Keen's coming in right now, so, and I know that he wanted to talk during that, when we bring up the subject, so if you want to just follow up with him, or,
I'll do that.
okay. Mr. Clifford.
I noticed the exemptions is on the agenda again tonight, and I'm sure this is, Kim will give you an update, but what I wanted to just mention was, when we were talking about it last time, it seemed like some people were anxious to act on the veterans exemption first, and then deal with the seniors after the fact. And I just want to point out that a lot of you during the campaign and the election, spoke about, in different phraseology, greater tax protection for seniors and veterans. That's why I was trying to explain last week that you can't do it in isolation. You have so much money available to give out in exemptions. If you give the seniors an exemption and not the veterans, then the veterans' taxes are going to go up to pay for the exemption you give the seniors, and vice versa. And I still advocate for a needs base, because it doesn't make sense that you would tax a senior, increase the taxes for a senior resident who was not wealthy, so that you could give a break to the veteran who was wealthy. And that's why it should be need-based. But I think you need to think of, if you're going to maintain that pledge of giving greater protection for seniors and veterans, you can't do it separately. It has to be one thing. And it's quite involved to study it and figure out how it would work. So that's one thing. Second thing is the dedicated revenue. It was very vague on the agenda, so I didn't understand it. I just read an article in the NRI Now News where we're talking about buying the gold property, and I would just caution that that property has been discussed before, and it should have been articulated on the agenda if that has any involvement in this project, of the idea of dedicating revenue and how it should be distributed. I know this came up once in the past too, and we had a discussion about it, and I asked some questions, and I don't know, I can't recall honestly where the council went with it, but my argument was that the revenue that you receive from the solar development on Iron Mine Hill Road is tangible personal property tax revenue. And you can't take that from the budget and then earmark it for something special, because if you take that revenue out of the budget, everybody's taxes are going to go up automatically, because your tangible revenue depreciates. The assets depreciate every year. So every year you lose revenue from tangibles, so you're going to lose. If you don't have new industry coming into town in that same year to cover it, you're going to have to raise taxes just to keep the amount of revenue at the same. But on top of that, if you take money out of this, I don't see how legally you can do it, and I asked at the time for an opinion from the solicitor, because I don't see where that's allowable under the law. I think, you know, some people mentioned Lincoln. Well, Lincoln isn't a tax revenue. Lincoln's does earmark their funds for road repaving that they receive in revenue from the state for the casino that's located in that town as a percentage of what the profits from the casino is. It's not a tangible personal property tax. This is in the documents that we look at, that I've looked at, that Mike Rapco's looked at, it's apparent to us that it's supposed to be taxed as as a tangible tax revenue, and you have to keep that on the book. You can't like put the money aside and then say, well, we're going to separate and we'll spend it on this and this and this. It's a revenue. You've got to declare it as a revenue. So I don't understand the purpose of doing it, and it makes far more sense to just, at the end of the year, if you run a surplus on your projected revenues and expenses, then earmark the funds at the end of the year and put those remaining funds into any account you want. But to do it beforehand, it's like the cart before the horse. It doesn't make any sense. You might need that money for some other thing during a particular year. So to earmark it now, when there's I don't see what the benefit to doing that is. It's not that significant an amount of money that you wouldn't want to do that with a lot of the 10 major top payers' revenues in the town. So I just don't get the whole idea. With regard to the bathrooms and the update on the septic, I just read online too that that's going forward. And at the meeting when you talked about the septic system and at first not passing the tests and having too high of a nitrogen level, and the testing was done in the January to June period of last year when school was not in process. And I questioned the validity of those tests when in fact the middle school was empty and nobody was using the septic system. And I also questioned, was that a treatment or does that change the capacity? Because to me it looked like a treatment. So I asked at the time if the town administrator was do his due diligence and get something in writing from DEM ascertaining whether those tests would be valid under the situation that those test results came in. So I just again would like to ask if that independent testing was done or if we've had contact with DEM to question the validity of that type of testing. On the amendment to the tax treaty, I just wondered what the update was on that, because I read in the paper a while ago and I was at the meeting when Green Development came in and wanted to talk about the tax, a flat dollar amount payment in lieu of negotiating a payment for the battery storage. And I haven't seen that on the agenda again. And yet we're talking about where we're dedicating their revenue, and have we even received revenue from them? Because I thought it was only once they started generating electricity and selling it that the payment would come to the town. So I wonder what the status of that is when you consider this. It's again premature if you're going to be dedicating that revenue and you haven't received it yet. I want to point out too that the levy tax, you're bound by a 4% increase in the tax levy. The last 2 years, we've been, in FY 2021, the increase in the levy was 3.75%. And the average for the state was 1.49. In FY 20, the increase was 3.88. The average for the state was 2.95. If you're every year spending to the max on the levy, and sometimes that's great because you have new revenue coming in, so it doesn't necessarily translate into an increase in the tax rate, but you don't even know what your revenue is going to be. You haven't gotten any figures from the tax assessor yet. You haven't had the meeting with the school department yet to see what the revenue growth is, what their needs are. It's like everything is being done backwards, and I just don't get why we would do any of this again until all the numbers are in front of you and you've done some research on the different types of the revenue stream, because you're taking money out of the revenue when you don't even know if you should be. This is the reevaluation year. Those numbers are going out. The people who didn't get burnt last time because it was such a skewed reeval, where half the town, the left side of the street got a modest increase, the right side of the street got an outrageous increase. Even the realtors were talking about how warped the whole thing was. Well, this year, it's probably going to be flipped. The people who got away with it last time are going to get burnt bad this time, and the people who got overtaxed and overassessed last time won't be hit as bad. But you're going to have a lot of outrage about that, which is, again, another reason why you shouldn't be playing with the revenue until you know what the picture is. I also want to remind you again, I saw that the police station is on the ballot, on the agenda. It's for discussion from Mr. Nordstrom. And I did ask a question, and I told you that everybody I spoke to at the state said you can put 3 questions in 1 question on the ballot. Renovate the current station as described in 2014 and with a new dollar amount. That's option A to vote for. B is vote for the new one for 17 or 15 or whatever million it is. And C is neither of the two. You have to give them a choice not to vote for either. But that's a perfectly legitimate way to put it on the ballot. Some of you early on were advocating for that. I strongly encourage you to do that. So I know I won't get an answer to my questions, right, from the solicitor?
We'll take everything that you said. You made a couple of great points, and I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah, but when are you going to report out? Because you said that last time when I asked some other questions. They still haven't been answered.
I'm not prepared to answer your question. I'll look into it, and like I said, Mike, you made a couple of great points.
Okay. Thank you. One last thing.
Go ahead.
I just caution you again and ask Mr. Igliozzi's advice before you speak on some of these topics, when you start to go array and get off into a tangent, because they're not, I know now from reading those articles what it's going to be discussed. But when I read that agenda item, I did not understand that the Bow property was going to be mentioned. I did not understand that we were going to, be reviewing something for the remodeling of the facility and getting the DEM approval in. So that's not in compliance with the OMA in my mind. And the agenda has to be specific.
Just because NRI Now does a story, it doesn't mean that we're gonna discuss everything that NRI Now.
Okay.
Okay.
And the last thing is, I saw things being passed out, and I also looked at the documents online. There weren't any documents
You want one?
online for.
Would you like one?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, but wait a minute. My point is, your rules of order limit you in just having a discussion about topics unless the informational backup was in the packet on Thursday. Unless that's been changed, I don't know if it was changed in the last couple of years, I don't believe it has been. So you can discuss the items, but by your own rules, you're not supposed to take an action on them.
Thank you.
If there was no backup material in the
I think you're getting a little ahead of us. This is just an informational update from, on the concession stands and bathrooms. We're not taking a vote on it. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak during open forum before I close it? No? Okay, I'm gonna move on then. Discussion by council, vote or other action on update of municipal building review task force. Mr. Nordstrom? You have some dates for us that you want to discuss? or-
The last time we met, we discussed doing a workshop. I talked to Jeff, I always mess up his name, McElravy. And my concern initially was that we would have to do a contract amendment to have them attend. He's willing to come and not charge the town,
Really?
yes. And then depending on what comes out of the workshop,
Of course.
we may have to negotiate something. So anyways, he gave me some dates, one of which I realized is a town council meeting, and we didn't want to do it on the town council meeting night. So the dates he offered are Wednesday, January 12th, Wednesday, January 19th, Thursday, January 20th.
Anybody want
Which one is the council
to
meeting?
jump in as far as any dates that are not good? Anybody have any dates on these that are not good for us? Okay.
Which one is the town council one, the 19th?
The 18th is the town council meeting, right?
Yeah. Yes. So it'll be the.
So I think the 12th is a little soon. Does anybody want to go with the 19th?
Yeah, and I don't know what the
No,
meeting
I- I
notification
really
is.
think
Is it
so.
a regular 48-hour notification? So,
I'm fine with any of them, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Everybody okay with the 19th? Claire?
And
Paul?
I had told them quarter of 7, that's the typical time.
Regular time?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tammy, can you put that down, that, for the, it's gonna be on Wednesday, January 19th. We're gonna have a meeting with the Building
Workshop.
Review Task Force, a workshop with the Building Review Task Force. That is a
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday. And that's gonna be the only item on the
Monday's
agenda.
a holiday that week.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna, you guys have a little more, I'm gonna put yours down. Jeff, I'm gonna put you guys with the other, I'm just gonna get Mr. Di Pasquale. Actually, first, I'm gonna ask, if we're gonna move down to new business, real quick. F, discussion by council vote or other action on consideration of resolution regarding Operation ZAP. Donna, how do you pronounce your last name? Ketchler?
It's Kaler.
Kayla, okay.
So we are going to start you with a little video. I don't know how many people are familiar about Operation ZAP in 1972, but this will give you a little background.
The health of the Blackstone River is not what it was in 1972. September of that year, Operation ZAP was organized, and 10,000 people stood shoulder to shoulder to begin the cleanup of 150 years of industrialization. The river barely supported fish life. Operation ZAP became the largest hands-on environmental activation of citizens in the United States. The Blackstone has changed for the better. It's evident and visible. However, 49 years later, we still have a long way to go before we can swim, drink, and eat the fish from the river, a dream of the organizers. Help us push on and achieve the dream of a healthy Blackstone River. ZAP 50 takes place September 2022. This is our opportunity to create new vigor, make a new commitment to bring the Blackstone back to health, and celebrate the people and the progress made. We'll clean the river, return to where Operation ZAP began, now a national park, and rejoice with new legislation that will ensure the Blackstone River's improvement. In the words of Senator Ted Kennedy, a vigorous supporter of the Blackstone Valley, our work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die. The Blackstone River is asking for your help. Will you join us?
That worked. So I work with the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council doing their Keep Blackstone Valley Beautiful program, which is a Keep America Beautiful affiliate. So we are very excited that this is our 50th anniversary of ZAP. We just feel that what happened in 1972 was awe-inspiring, really wonderful event that one gentleman, David Rosser, was spearheading this and got 10,000 volunteers on one day. I don't know if anyone in the room was actually at the event. I have, oh, yay! We have some, we're calling them Zapsters. That was the first original day, and then we've had a 30th and some other events after on the big anniversaries. But this is our 50th. So we want to celebrate what has happened. Show that, first off, recognize all the hard effort, but then also show that we're still involved with the environment. And why the resolution was sent was we're working with all our Rhode Island communities in the Blackstone Valley, but we're also including all the communities up to Worcester in Massachusetts along in the Blackstone watershed. But we're trying to rally, first off, awareness of what we're trying to do. We are going to have a big event, and it's going to be another cleanup. It's going to be watershed-wide, but our goal is to really rally 10,000 volunteers, 10,001. We want to show that we're even bigger and better, and that more people are still involved with the environment and ready to get out and make a difference. So we wrote up the resolution just to, first off, I've already spoken with Administrator Zielinski, Ray Pendergast, Scott Hawes in Public Works, very willing to participate, but we wanted to get everyone on board with what our goal is and just, share the information so that everyone knows what's going on in all our Rhode Island communities. So, again, the goal is 10,000 volunteers to come out. It's going to be on August 27th. The original date was September 9th. So that's why that time frame. On the 10th, we're going to have a celebration at the old Slater Mill, which is where they had the first celebration event. And we're just looking to really share this opportunity to come out, clean up, green up on August 27th or in that close time frame. We want it to be something that's like we're all doing this at one time of the year, showing a lot of support, getting a lot of awareness, and just bringing recognition and making a big to-do out of it. So that's why we're picking that date. So we're setting up, what I'm doing in Rhode Island, I'm working with the Rhode Island communities. We're setting up municipal contacts that will be working, with the towns. We want to be able to target areas that are needed in the town for improvements, cleanups, green-ups, but we're also doing community captains. So it won't just be on municipal people to handle all this, but we're going to be I'm going to be the captain with another woman in the town for North Smithfield. And we're getting a community captain just to reach out into the community, talk with different groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, churches, and say, have everyone come out and just take part in this event. Scott and Ray, they're going to be our municipal helpers. And we just are really excited about it and wanted to just share this, and we're happy that North Smithfield already said that they want to be part of it. And we wanted to let the town officials also know that that we're all working on this together. And it's a good thing for the environment, and it's a good thing for the community, bring community awareness and bring the community together. So
From what point to what point, what is your area or your work area going to be?
it's going to be really from Pawtucket all the way up to Worcester.
Oh,
In the
really?
watershed. So the first original ZAP, what spearheaded this whole thing is what the river looked like, as you saw in the pictures. It was really terrible. They were pulling out cars, buses, different, all that was along the thing. So the cleanup was really targeted right on the river. We're going to be doing the cleanup watershed wide, which goes all the way to, over to Burrillville, throughout the whole Blackstone Valley watershed, with an educational component of what we do here in North Smithfield or Burrillville, maybe you're not right on the Blackstone River, but it still matters to the health of the river. So working together. Luckily, we were not pulling out these big items anymore. The river looks a lot better, as most of you probably know, but we still have a lot of help that we can be doing. Litter is a big thing, something that I've been advocating for a long time. So people can pick up and, do a cleanup along their own street. We're going to be asking maybe certain storm drains because it goes directly into the waterways. So that kind of thing, that we're going to target some areas that people, when they want to help in North Smithfield, we can say maybe help this area, or they can let us know areas. So that's our goal, and we're excited to have all our communities support this.
I'm sorry, could you go ahead? Did you have a question? Is the river in good shape? Because I took a boat down at one time about a year ago, and it looked during COVID, and it looked great from the river looking out. It looks a lot better than when you're outside looking in. When you're going down the river, it looks really nice.
So I believe right now the river is a Class C, which means recreation only. So people do fish, but you cannot eat the fish. One of the goals of bringing all these people together at one time is to show, to get the press and the media coverage that this is going on, because the other part of maintaining the river is the maintenance. What we're finding is a lot of times there's trees and different things that are falling into the river where we don't have any kind of federal funding to help maintain and clear that. We want to keep it open. We want it to be a recreation and something that people can use, but we need, there is some funding, and right now, most of that's just done by, nonprofit groups and different things. So that's the other part, is to make our, congressmen, representatives, governors aware that, we need help to keep this asset going in our community as well. We believe at the Tourism Council, it's a huge asset. I'm sure the town does as well. And, you know, it's just, we want people to come and have fun here and be able to use the river. And after 50 years, we have made some good progress, but we feel we need to re-energize that, and it's a good time to bring awareness for the anniversary. Keep it going.
Anyone have any questions or comments? So included in your package was a resolution that I imagine it's the same resolution that's going around to just about every other town that you...
It is, yes.
David, I don't have to read that whole resolution, do I? Okay.
May I make a comment? I'd like you to all take a good look at this lady. She was one of the originators of our Green and Clean Day way back when. And it started, and it was very active within the schools. And you saw much more of it. I'm hoping that we can address the school committee and make it a part of their environmental science curriculum. It's very important, and I think that's kind of slid a little. If you need my help in any way, I've seen what you've done. I've seen the scouts get involved, band get involved, everyone gets involved. And I know the last couple of years it's been difficult, but you started a lot rolling in this town.
And, yeah, I think also that's another point of the 10,000. I think sometimes we feel like our little bit can't help. So if we do it and we really see a one-time, you know, effort and results, I think that is really helpful. So we just want people to feel that they can make a difference, and they do. I mean, we need everyone to get on board.
Are they still having people adopt certain areas? Like, thinking in town, if we had a part of town by a small group, making sure it's cleaned up, having any ideas. We have the flower lady in this town. And let me tell you, the color that she's bringing forth, it just shows the beauty of nature in itself. I'd like to see, was it Mrs. Johnson in Texas with her wildflower seeds everywhere? And it's,
Right.
now,
Lady
you
Bird
look out
Johnson.
there and it's there. And you didn't have to do too much to it either.
Right.
So if I can help through the school system to
Great.
get the kids on this again, whether it be their part, the little ones it's hard, you can have them work at the elementary, but I think, and at the middle and secondary with the middle school and the high school, I'd really like to see certain groups. And maybe next year for senior projects, we can kind of throw this out to them, and they can be leaders there. That would be a great project. But I thank you. You've done a lot all these years.
So we're just hoping that everyone, like I said, can share, you know, through all your networks, through all your community groups. We do have a Zap the Blackstone website. There is a volunteer sheet that we're trying to get people to say, I want to take part in cleanups, I want to be part of the promotion when we do the big celebration event, whatever. It's all going to be something that we're thinking about the environment, we're learning about it, and the other part of, if you pick up litter, I've always had the Rhode Island Million Pieces, hashtag RI Million Pieces, that we've been trying to get people to do one piece of litter. If you pick up, we get 1 million pieces, yay, isn't that wonderful? But it's really that we're all working together. And, you know, I think we can do it. I think we can energize this and make it feel like we're making a difference. And the environment is such an important issue today and probably moving forward if we don't pay attention and do what we can.
You gotta put Claire on it. She'll get you 10,000 people.
All right, there we go. We don't even have to go to another town.
Nobody says no to
Yeah,
says no to Claire.
no, and that's it.
Oh,
And actually, I'm supposed to, you all know my boss, Bob Billington. So we're really trying to, the 10,000 number sounds like a lot, but we were saying it's less than 10% of each town's population, which only gives me like 130 in North Smithfield, but I know we're going to get a lot more volunteers than that. So we really just think it can be a fun way to energize and get people thinking and doing good.
All right, thank you.
So, thank you.
And thank you, really. This isn't just a job for her, it's a love. It's a vocation, really.
Do we have a motion to approve this, the resolution?
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Operation ZAP resolution as attached to the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council letter dated December 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Do
Second.
we have a second on that? Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions?
Just have it drawn up so it's official and we can sign it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll have it drawn up, Mr. President, tomorrow, since the clerk for circulation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Benny?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. Okay, now we're going to move back up to old business C, discussion by council vote or other action on update of bathrooms and concession stand at the Veterans Memorial Stadium. A lot of interest in this.
You'll be happy. So, I have a full set. Really, we have an update from 9/20/21. So I started with that on your first page, page 1, and it basically from August 2020 to September 2021, Green worked with your consultant and the town to get the school up to par to meet the standards. And we'll talk a little bit more about the testing as we get into it. I'm happy to let everybody know on in September, we submitted to DEM. The DEM permit is attached. We received it on 9/28. And there's, on the back page, I have another set with the permit and everything in it for you. So, where are we from today and from the permit? Right now, the drawings that you have are 75% complete. So that is, the architectural and structural are 100% just about ready for a building permit. Mechanical and plumbing and electrical are in design. Electrical is gonna be very difficult, but it's in design. So we have redesigned the building 3 times due to different issues. The first issue was the light tower, to move the electrical. The second issue came up with the ADA, that the state wanted the press box to be ADA. There's multiple projects that are not ADA on a press box, but they wanted it, so we had to design a bridge. So we designed it 3 times, which the drawings that you have reflect it. We are planning on, RGB has a letter attached farther into it, but we're planning on submitting the building permit on the 24th of this month. That's gonna be the building permit and the structural permit, and we're gonna submit with a demolition permit for the existing concession stand. And we're gonna try to make things safe for the electrical, because the electrical configuration is very complicated, but that's our goal there. We're planning on submitting the remainder of the design, plumbing and everything, on the 24th of February. We're hoping that the town will issue the permits for the building permit on February 28th, which will give us a construction start to demo the building and make it safe March 1st, 2020, so March this year. We've been all discussing possibly a groundbreaking. So looking at the site, if we took the building down, we did the temporary electrical, we're thinking, and we can discuss later on, if you want to do a groundbreaking, maybe in the middle of March, the weather will be better, and we'll start the foundation. So that's really where we are. We're expecting the concession stand to be done for a ribbon cutting on the graduation. We think will be a good time. It's about 3 months. It's a lot of work to do in 3 months.
We're already working with subcontractors, getting pricing and everything, so we can get a good budget. I'm probably over my budget by 100%, but that's my problem. But there's some things that Mr. Clifford brought up that I want to make very, very clear to the town, and it's here. So in your original permitting, you have to test every quarter the water quality at the school from day one. When they gave us our permit, they noted, which is on page 4, down below, they noted exactly what the requirements are to meet the requirements of the school. Somebody really needs to pay attention to this, because if you don't report quarterly, then you have an issue. And that would answer the question, was the test accurate when there were less children in the school to where they are now? That's why they want it quarterly, so they can treat it properly at that time. So Kevin spent a lot of time getting the system, working with your consultant and everything. So up above on 4, and I'm just trying to keep it simple tonight, we're asking the question to the town here, and we're asking the question, have the quarterly reports gone in? So NWSI is your subcontractor. I think it would be important to check that, because if we start construction and you're not reporting, that could be the only delay in this project at this time.
I'll check with Alan CP on that.
Yeah. And I think one person should be assigned to it and just follows through and so that's that.
Well, theoretically, he should be doing it, right?
It has to be
It's
done.
mandated.
Per your
It's
permit, it has
mandated.
to be done. Yes.
Right.
It's mandated.
It's not, I think your consultant is doing all the testing and everything, but he has to make sure that they are out there doing it. So, that's that. I attached a letter from RGB just stating kind of very similar. Plans are at 75%. They need 30 days to complete. All the plans are 100%, so we can have a full set of drawings for a permit. A couple of things I want to note. I've been, a lot of pressure I know has been being put on for time. And if we're working together, it took me 6 weeks to get into your concession stand to look at the electrical panel. 3 trips, 6 weeks to open up a wooden building. We need to work. If we need to get in, we got to find a way to expedite. If you want the project done, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it was frustrating the first time we went, the second time. So I'm asking that. I'm hoping the building department will be able to look at the plans rapidly so we can get started on it.
We can put that on the agenda when we meet with the school committee to discuss working with them, between the two of us.
And you do see again on page 4, and it's highlighted, that's your original permit for the school. You have to follow that. And I'm not a preacher, I just want to finish the project and not have to spend another year. DEM permit is in, no reason for us to open it up, but this is the whole permit with the site plan from DEM, you have a copy of that. You have a copy of your rendering here, and one of the issues were the concession stand in the bathroom, cooking outside. This was a big issue, the light, and the old concession stand, we would have had to move the light tower, which had been a lot of problems, so we're planning on a nice area that you can put picnic tables in. There's your bathrooms, and then on the other side, it's more detailed on the plans. Do you have the second plan possibly?
This one?
You have paper of it, yep, right there, there you go. So, if you look on the other side, of the left side of the building, I thought it was up before, but we have a custom ramp being built to get into the press box. Your bathrooms are back to back, and your concession stand. You do have a full set of drawings. Go ahead. Up there, beautiful. Thank you, sir. I thought I saw it. So, we're thinking you're gonna grill out here for now. I think later on in time, you'll find out a suppression system you can buy in the future that goes in here, one whole set, but we're grilling outside, so we're not having any problems. There'll be an oil water tank with the sewer going to the existing septic system that's halfway across the other 2 fields. You have your women's room, that's not too much, and your men's room stalls in through here. And then the press box, actually, this is a custom like bridge. It starts off with concrete, goes up, and brings you into the press box up at the front of the site. The detail on the drawings, if you look at them, there's a lot of detail. I don't think it's necessary that we go through them all. I am going to try to put these on our website tomorrow. So for anybody in the public, if you want, they can, it's a big file, so I'm gonna make sure that my IT people can do it, and they can go to the website to look at the actual construction. So that's really where we are right now for the concession stand.
So just a couple of quick questions.
Yes, sir. I hope I didn't go too fast.
No, not at all. Will they be able to use the field while you guys are working on the concession stand?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We'll fence it off, it'll be fine,
okay.
no problem.
And could you just, I know what, I was kind of in the loop along the way. Can you explain why it took as long as it did to get to where we are today, as opposed to like when this first came up?
Because when we submitted to DEM for your septic, none of your retesting was being done. So they retested it, we got your consultant, retested it, and it was failed. So DEM said, until you meet your original permit for the school and the septic system, we're not moving forward. It took a year. Kevin actually took on a year of getting people, and it's difficult when you're not the owner of the site. So every time we had to do something, we have to go see it was actually the old town manager there, and it was just a lot of back and forth with DEM. But we lost 1 year, and it's all documented, dealing with an existing condition. That's why I'm saying you need to report quarterly on your septic system, and they'll treat it appropriately, because that's the issue. And then they'll adjust it. So if we have more kids this year, they'll adjust the system to be exactly where it needs to be. But if we start construction and they come out and it's not there, they'll stop me from working. So, and you should have plenty of time. I believe we have the first quarter should be ready now.
It should be at this point, yeah.
Will it be necessary to move the memorial, the stone?
No, with the new design, we do not need to remove the memorial at all, which is nice. We'll work around it. There you go. Yeah, so the memorial.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So we're not gonna have to remove that. We're building a retaining wall here, which we might adjust a little bit to give more area for cooking on it. So I will post the plans on our website, and it'll be very easy for people. I'll send you the information, or you can post them however you want.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
So how high is the actual press box? Like when you sit inside it, how elevated are you from the ground?
I'm gonna say, I can give you exact if you want, but your feet are probably sitting about 8 feet above the outside ground there, 8 to 10 feet, because the back wall here is 12. But I'm sure if I,
The front part of the building
go ahead, Ken.
is about, it's not full height, like 6, 7 foot. It's about 5.5 feet. So that's gonna be used for some storage, some of the mechanicals, obviously, but sit in that sort of the green area below the press box. Those will be accessed in the back. So it sits up about 5.5 feet, give or take. We're still working with some elevations with RGB.
What's that say, A200, A100? The plan's a little small. I would have liked to have built you larger plans, but I'm looking at it. Your feet is about 10 feet up, so 8 feet above, so as people walk in front of you, it won't block your,
Yeah, the limitation is the handicap ramp comes off the parking area behind it. You can only have a 30-inch rise over a certain distance without getting into landings and having a real complicated ADA access. So we're bringing it up the maximum we can, and that's basically the press box floor at that point.
Anything else? Anybody else? No? Well, thank you for the update.
all right? And I will find a way, and I'll get some larger, I can email a full set to
to the town, and you can open them up and see them a little better than this. And I
That's great.
apologize, I didn't get a chance to give you a whole set on this tonight. Next time I will.
It'll be great to have this facility available at graduation.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Aye.
Thank you.
David, if that was just an update, do we have to motion to accept these prints as, no? So that's good? Okay. Okay, we're gonna move down to new business, which is gonna be, we're gonna coincide that with B on old business. So discussion by council vote of action on Halliwell Review Committee. Mr. Porter, do you wanna? Mr. Corriveau, did you want to speak first on this, sir?
No, we actually didn't meet between last meeting and this meeting, so.
Okay.
And I know we delayed a few things that we discussed last meeting, so I think that's what Jeff is going to go over.
All right, sorry, I got interested in the architecturals of that plan. So we provided a letter to you folks based on our December 16th meeting. If you don't mind, I'd just like to run through some of our final recommendations, just to touch base so that everybody understands where the Halliwell Review Committee is coming from. So, like I said, on December 16th, we discussed our final recommendations, and we have about 4 recommendations that we'd like to give to the town council. So firstly, we had a discussion about the existing buildings, and based on the reports and the assessments by our consultants, and we recommended to the council that the buildings be abated and demolished expeditiously. Secondly, we recommend that the town, through the Halliwell Review Committee, continue to investigate and evaluate the potential community uses of the property within the context of the town's master plan and existing and upcoming public facility needs with additional public outreach and involvement. Third, we recommend to the council that the town moves forward with a request for qualifications for an architectural and engineering firm to further study a master plan and conceptual designs of the property based on the information that has been provided and continue to move forward. We did put together a draft RFQ for review by the council and solicitor and the finance director. The committee had voted to allow me, the chairman of the committee, to work with everybody to kind of finalize that, to get that moving. And then fourth, we recommended to the council that the HRC further explore partnerships with the community-based organizations, and with town council approval, have the ability to create a subcommittee for such purposes. And then lastly, we discussed what we'd like our future goals to be as we move forward with the acceptance of the council. That we modify our resolution and duties to the following: with oversight and execution of the RFQ and contract, exploration of the viability of wetland areas for recreation purposes in conjunction with the town planner and DEM, investigate funding opportunities and work with appropriate town entities to explore financial considerations, explore partnerships with community organizations, and continue to explore and evaluate potential community uses of the property. And it also want to just underscore that the 9 members on the board are very enthusiastic about what's the future of this committee is going to be. The other 8 individuals are very dedicated to this project and still continue to be very excited to see what the next steps are. So I am here with the Vice Chairman, Chris Simpkins, as well. So if you have any questions, we're certainly happy to answer them.
Chris, did you want to add anything to this? Or you just?
No, I think that sums up well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Porter, from Mr. Porter? Just a couple of quick things. I just don't want to see I just don't want to see us get too far ahead of ourselves.
Sure.
For instance, and I don't mean any slight on you or your committee, but the committee is an advisory committee, and they
Mhm.
can't really authorize you to go and work with the solicitor or work with the finance director.
Certainly.
You know, I just don't want us to get too far outside of our scope,
Yep,
you
yeah,
know?
not a
Uh,
problem.
And so I'm thinking, we're gonna have to take down the buildings, that's first and foremost. That's, we all agree on that. That's number one.
It's already, if I may, it's already, some of that's already in progress. I
Right.
assume we're doing the abatement program, and so that we'll be able to go out and get bids for demolition, so
So that's the
that
first
process,
and
that
foremost, that has
process
to
is
get
starting
done.
to go, which is probably the most important piece.
Right.
Yeah,
We're
we-
lucky that we haven't had any incidents over there
Mhm.
yet, you know? And then, what would come after that? A master plan?
I was thinking, the committee was actually thinking that a lot of things could probably be happening on parallel paths.
Okay.
So while the abatement is being done at Halliwell, we can put forth the RFQ for architectural and engineering services. And we go through a similar process like the MBRTF just went through with the police station and bring on an architect and an engineering firm and get an understanding, pick up where Weston and Sampson has now left off. They provided us with some very highly conceptual land use planning. So now we want to start getting into what's going to actually, if we're going to still be moving forward with the building, what is going to be in this building, the programmatic elements of it. If, we're going to be looking at a community center, well, what kind of features are we going to be putting in this community center? Are we putting in a gymnasium? Are we putting in maker spaces? Are we putting in rentable spaces for people to come and teach classes? Are we going to be looking at, there was mention that we could have a satellite office for the police and fire stations, just really starting to understand and nail down what the community wants to see in a community center type building.
So now you're the architect, so I could be getting it wrong, but are we getting the order mixed up? Like, shouldn't the committee come up, shouldn't the committee and the council finally decide, okay, this is what we want to do, and then go out for the RFQ? Why do you want to go out for the RFQ before we know exactly what we want to?
Because I think we need to ask more questions. I don't think, the initial design charrette that was held by Weston and Sampson was a very high-level conceptual planning study. This would be the next drill down. This would be the next step of drilling down into a master plan, what we call in our business is schematic design. So really, it's the next step that we would be going into. This is something that I've done plenty of times with other projects through my company. Is we do a high-level conceptual study similar to what Weston and Sampson has done. Now we're going to take that study and improve upon it. We're going to really start to understand what's going to be in this building, what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost, and it's really the next step in the process as we move forward with this.
You want to say anything?
I kind of agree with your thinking here, is that we've only looked at one use of that facility, is a community center. That's the only thing that we've looked at. We haven't looked at what other potential things could be there, AKA a school, whether we want to put a fire station there or any other buildings down there. We haven't, and I thought Weston and Sampson was going to do a better land use thing, saying, you have all of this land, you could put this here, you could put this here, you should reserve this piece for this in the future, a longer-term plan. And I don't know if it was just from them having the input from people in the community, or if it was from the Halliwell Review Committee. It seemed like they were focused on a senior/community center. That's what the whole focus of the study was, not what could we use this land for overall, long-term. And I'm not saying the community center should go there. That's not my point. Is have we looked at all of those potentially community uses that are out there, potentially that are out there? I don't think we have done that. And so if we hired an architect, they're only going to look at this community center because that's the only thing that's on the table. We don't know if there's other things on the table. I would have liked to have another meeting with Weston and Sampson to look at other future uses, but my understanding is we've used up all of our meetings with them.
Well, I think the issue with Weston and Sampson, which we struggled with a little bit with the Halliwell Review Committee was, they didn't want to get pigeonholed, so to speak, into one area. And even at most, when we were narrowing it down to a community center or senior center based on the charrette, they still were very reserved on what they could come up with possibilities of what we could use it for. So I highly doubt if having them come back, if we were to say, all right, here's this clean slate of land, give us all the different options, I just find that they wouldn't give us concrete ideas, and we'd be scratching our head just as much as the end as we would at the beginning.
Well, if I may, one of the tasks that was given to the committee was to figure out what the community wanted to see at the Halliwell property. And I think that shown are the survey results that we put forth during the months of May and June really drove home that the community would like to see a community center in that location. There were a few mentions of a police station being in that location, but there were also mentions that they don't want to see a police station in that location. So that was the initial direction that we had come to the conclusion based off of the input from the townsfolk. Now, if we want to continue looking at further options, we are certainly open to that. However, I think it was pretty universal throughout the town that folks want to see some sort of community center there. And that's why I'm suggesting that we move forward with the RFQ so we can continue that momentum, because there's excitement behind a community center. We don't have a community center in town. We have Scouters Hall, but that's limited at this point. And I think at this point, it's, the one thing that we're concerned about is losing the momentum that we have and the excitement about the property. So, while one of the other things that we did make note of and we did discuss is that during this master planning process is that we do have a meeting with either the school committee or the superintendent and figure out, okay, if there is going to be a need for a school, how much space do we need? And let's look at this long-term, master planning it out, that we're going to need X amount of square feet in this location. So then that way, if the future need comes that we need another school, then that area is reserved.
From what I gathered from the meeting with the Weston and Sampson, it was that there is no, that piece of land is not nearly as big as we thought it was, because it's mostly wet and unbuildable.
I think we need to look at it a little creatively, though. I think there's the ability to section off areas.
There were constraints on the property, but it's not as dead as what they're.
The situation isn't as dire as it sounded.
Okay, good to know.
Because there's certainly the ability to regrade. It just comes at an increased cost if we're gonna start to think really creatively about how we wanna use it. That would be the only issue, because we would have grading issues, but we can certainly work well with outside of the wetland buffer zones.
You can replicate wetlands if you need to.
Exactly. So there's options out there. And that's why we're saying with this master plan, it would be the next step from what Weston Sampson gave us. So we would be able to identify, okay, this is an area that's going to be reserved for schools when the need comes for it. This is going to be the area that's going to be reserved for a community center. This is going to be the area that's a community garden. These are the areas that are going to be the passive recreation that go through the wetlands. So I think, again, like I said previously, this next step is just a further drilling down of some of the concepts that Weston and Sampson provided us, but with a little bit more dedicated research and understanding of what the town needs as we move forward.
All right. Now, are you looking for an action from the council tonight? Are you looking for us to?
Ideally, it would be great if you guys had a vote tonight on some of these items. Otherwise, we would just be waiting for the Halliwell Review Committee. We feel as though our tasks have been accomplished based on the language of the existing resolution. So we would just be waiting for an action from the town council for us to continue moving forward, or I hate to even say this, or just dissolve the Halliwell Review
No,
Committee.
that's not-
since we've been-
Yeah, I think,
No, no,
I think,
no, no.
I think one of the other things we have to do, and Dave, let me know if this is required, would we have to revise the resolution to include more
Give 'em a new
scope
task.
or more
Give 'em a new
tasks?
task.
Right,
Mhm.
okay. So that might be something we might want to consider discussing and how we want that to look like.
I mean, some of the recommendations, obviously, the first recommendation, I think we're all on the same page with that. I think
Correct.
everybody agrees with that one. I'm all in favor of the second one, with keeping the Halliwell Review Committee and continue to look at other uses, potential uses, working with the community. I'm not sure what you mean by community-based organizations, if those are like local groups in town, or if it's.
It would be a kind of a wide cast net, because at one point, we did meet with the YMCA folks. It could be meeting with Boys and Girls Club. It could be meeting with the Cub Scouts, could be meeting with the Girl Scouts, just to make sure that, you know, any potential partnerships to make this a successful project would be appropriate.
So,
And it's one of those things that, we also had a discussion if we had the ability to create a subcommittee on our own. I wanted to make sure that we were well within our ability if, or not in our ability by asking permission, that we have the ability to do so. I'm not sure what the charter says and what the rules and regulations were, so we were just that's why we asked that question as well.
so I would agree that, you know, that we keep the Halliwell Review Committee. I would kind of like reorganize what they had with the continuing roles. I would put them in a different order, just prioritize them in different orders. I would put the last one first, to explore and evaluate potential community uses, to continue to do that. Explore partnerships. Until we really know what we want to do, though, investigating funding opportunities, you can start that process, but it might be premature at this time right now. The viability of wetlands, that would be something that they could start looking at, and because some of these people from DEM will come in and help you out anyways with it. And then the RFQ, I just don't think that's the top priority for it
Yeah.
right now. I think that we got a lot more legwork to do before
I
we
agree.
get to that point. But I'm all in favor of keeping them on board.
Oh,
and keeping-
100%.
and keeping them going and giving them new tasks, or just redefining the task and keep them going forward with this.
Mr. Gliozzi?
Just a technical issue, Mr. President, point of order. Again, the council always has to be sensitive when they create these committees, because, you know, open meetings requirements, access to public records are all, are in play. So I do not recommend, a subcommittee that create another whole series of requirements. Somebody who's not paid, don't forget, the town does not, as a matter of course, support advisory committees with the clerk's office. They don't support it. The committees take it upon themselves for compliance. And that's a lot of responsibility, and we've had problems in the past. And my advice is strongly against authorizing any advisory committee to have the authority to create subcommittees. Unless you're going to support them with the clerk's office, you're gonna have the clerk be the clerk of that committee, that's a different story. Because don't forget, the clerk's office has to certify every year that they've taken those courses and that they're responsible. Technically speaking, the clerk's office is responsible for the record keeping of those advisory committees, even though they don't support them by state law. So that's and you know how problems happen when people don't get the information, or they believe that information isn't being done right, or a meeting isn't being done right. Those are my concerns from a legal perspective. Other than that, obviously, well-intentioned people deserve your support.
So then I guess, an alternative question, because we're a 9-member board, and to try and have folks like these community-based organizations come to us for our meetings and whatnot, there are some folks that are retired on the board, so it's easier for them to go out and meet with some of these groups. So it was just one of those things that if we have the ability to have one individual go and meet with this and then come back and report to the Halliwell Review Committee, and then that gets put into the notes.
They could do that.
Like I said, we weren't sure of the rules and regulations. We want to make sure we're playing by the rules, playing by the book. But we just wanted to make sure that inviting one person to come talk to a 9-member board for a potential, like someone with the YMCA, there could be some folks that are like, okay, this is all well and good, but we don't need to hear about it. And, there could just be other discussions. We just want to make sure that, we're spending our time efficiently and effectively as a committee and making progress as best we can. So that was the reasoning behind making that subcommittee. But I fully respect your decision if you guys don't want to do that.
This is not my area of expertise, all right, so I might be.
Neither is it mine.
Well, I'm talking about the architecture part.
No, sure.
So I might be oversimplifying this. Maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong or lead me in the right direction. I thought when we established the committee and Weston and Sampson, that you guys were gonna come up with, okay, this is what we want. This is what we wanna do. We wanna put a splash pad here, we wanna put a community center, we got room for walking trails, we're gonna do this, and you come back to the council and we say, that's a great idea, we're gonna go with it. Now let's go out for an RFQ. That's what I thought was gonna happen, but why doesn't it happen? Like, that's not where we are.
It was the way the original RFQ was written. It was to develop conceptual plans. It wasn't to definitively nail down one plan and move us forward. Weston and Sampson was contracted to look at the options that we could do and not narrow it down. The committee has narrowed it down. We had, the 5 conceptual plans that were presented by Weston and Sampson. The committee is all on the same page, and we all think that concept number 5 is the best one to move forward with. So that's where essentially the next architect engineering firm would come and pick that up, and then further develop that with program and elements like that.
Right, I was just going to add, with working with Weston and Sampson, it seemed as though the RFQ was basically providing us with a blueprint of what the potential based on the grade, based on wetlands, all these different more environmental scenarios of the blueprint of the lot itself, not necessarily focusing on, okay, at the end of the day, we're going to carry you from point A to point Z, and then this can be presented to town council, and then in turn, we'll have an idea of what we want for the property. I think even myself, going into it, I thought that that's what the RFQ, the intent was, but as we started to navigate through that process with Weston and Sampson, clearly there was some maybe misinterpretation of that, whether it was on their end or our end. But at the end of the day, I agree with the Halliwell committee in the sense where the next step, aside from knocking everything down and doing the abatement, the next step would be to get into that conceptual phase of what we can actually do with the property, what we want to put in the building. And that comes from the surveys we did. It comes from the dialogue that we had within the committee itself. And then also during Pumpkin Fest, when we had the conceptual designs, and again, going out to the public and asking them, okay, now we've narrowed it down to 5 visual concepts. Which one are you leaning towards? So I think, we did take something that was nothing and made it into something that it is now. But I think the next step is, as Jeff said, kind of fine tune it.
Yeah, and Weston and Sampson is an engineering firm that is strictly land planning, not architectural based with buildings and what the buildings will look like, what's going in the buildings. So they had architects on board to help with the assessment of the existing buildings. But I think looking to them to come to that final determination of what the buildings are looking like, what's in the buildings, where is it going to be located, was outside of their contract, but also outside of their expertise a little bit. And this is why we feel that, bringing on an architect and an engineering firm would be the next step to progress this a little bit further.
No, that's why I said earlier that we hired Weston and Sampson to do full land use analysis and what potential was out there. And it seemed like it quickly got focused into one project on the site. And that was one of my concerns. The other, what was I gonna say now? I had something.
Bad sign.
Uh-huh,
Bad sign.
I know I'm getting old. I just think that one of the things that we missed out on was when the planner left. The planner was kind of overseeing this, working with Weston Sampson and the Halliwell Review Committee, and he had a better handle on it. And I think that when he left, it created a little bit of a vacuum there as far as the coordination with what Weston and Sampson and what the town was looking for. I think that was part of what created some of maybe the confusion. I don't think if that's the right term, but I think that's part of what happened there, is that when Tom left, it created a vacuum that Tom understood because Tom helped write that RFP. So Tom understood what he was expecting from Weston and Sampson, and then when he switched jobs, we lost that continuity without having anyone to fill it, and that may be part of it, and I can't say for sure, it's just a theory, you know.
Well, I think also, I mean, the first thing that we started off was with the townwide survey, and we got tremendous results on that. Well, we didn't get an overwhelming response of, putting in a new fire station, or putting in a school, or putting in a police station, or even selling the property. And then with that data, we then shared that with Weston and Sampson. I think they took that, and as a relatively quick follow-up, did the charrette at the beginning of the summer, and that kind of reiterated what people had already presented in the survey results. So, I feel as though, if you're gonna, if at this point, we kind of look at it and say, well, okay, we're gonna backtrack, and, what would be the potential of a police station? Now you've more or less negated what the community has leaned towards. And I think we just have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I'm not asking to come up with different concepts. I'm asking to come up with a concept and saying, all right, this is what we want. We had the charrette.
Yep.
We had the Pumpkin Fest. We had the survey, and this is what we came up with. We want to do X, Y, and Z. And we want to do this. We walk, Then comes to the council, and we look at it, and we're like, yeah, you know what? That's really nice. We agree with that. Now let's go out for a review. That's why isn't it that way? Why isn't it happening that way?
Well, I think, I don't know if maybe we're speaking the same language, but I think we are there, like Jeff had said, with Concept 5, which is one building. So we did narrow it down from 5 different scenarios, and Concept number 5, which is essentially one building, and what we can put in that one building, whether it's 2 stores, 2 stories, 3 stories, regardless, I think we are there. At this point, it's a matter of saying, okay, what does it look like? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I'm trying to think a little bit about.
And I don't mean maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but school me, tell me.
It's okay. Oversimplified is fine. But I think the process that you just outlined, we want X, Y, and Z, and now we go out to RFQ. We have X, Y, and Z. It's just a very high-level concept right now. So now we're going to get an architect on board to further develop that concept. So then that way we know cost, we know what it looks like, we know what's in it. And if you read the RFQ, we're asking the architect to come back and do 3 more public charrettes at various that we would schedule at various times. So there would be more community input and involvement in this process. So then that way we can really say, okay, we've now had 3 meetings with community folks that have come, they've given their input. We really have a good handle on what people are expecting to see at this Halliwell property. And I know from experience the amount of work that now has to go into, the next steps. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of drawings. There's going to be a lot of, we've asked in the RFQ, I'm actually asking for 2 concepts that get priced out. So then that way we have the ability to say, okay, well, there's, here's our master plan that we've developed. Here's a concept where the community center's here, here's a concept where the community center's here, and we know the price of both. So, it's, as I've said, it's just really now narrowing down our focus a little bit more to get to where we need to be.
Anybody else have any questions?
So with the Halliwell Review Committee, so obviously there's still a lot of questions out there. So couldn't the next step of the committee be community-oriented, but more of an open space area? Because, you know, we're already looking at a police station, and now, yeah, a community center, but does it really need to be a building per se right now? Could it be just open space and we do some work to it, and, you know, there's things that people go there for, whether it be the concerts, whether it be, you know, an ice rink, whether it be some sporting fields, whether it be, you know, some picnic areas or stuff like that, that at least we have some sense of the community coming together, but it's also not an overpriced project right now until we
Right.
really know where we want to go and how big we want to go. And
So, part of the RFQ that we've outlined is a phasing plan. So if we find that right now, we have a lot of priorities in town that we want to spend money on. We as the committee understood that. So we were starting to look at things as we create a master plan. Within that master plan, we start to now pick out different items. So we can determine that the community garden is priority number one. The passive recreation trails that can go through the wetlands is priority number one. We can you could have the ability to split the building. So if we do build some sort of building, that can be phase 2. And then the other half of the building can be phase 3. We have the ability to really identify the community priorities, phase them out, have them estimated so we have an idea of cost and escalation, and then we can kind of take off each bit as the town feels the need to do so. So that's why we did talk about phasing plans, because we know there's a lot of priorities in town right now. And that would be one of the items that we would expect the architect to help us identify what the priorities are and how we could appropriately phase that at the property itself. Does that make sense? Okay.
I had that discussion with John, and I told him, and with Jeff too, that the master plan is a big piece of this. It doesn't mean that you do it all at once. It means, here's what we want to do. And maybe to oversimplify it, it's like when you're building your house. You can say you want your kitchen here, but you can't just look at just the kitchen, this is what I want. You have to look at where your bathroom is gonna go, so you know where all your plumbing goes. And so this is kind of like that, where you're building a whole thing, and you gotta know where all the pieces are, or where they could be, before you do just one piece of it. And so the master plan is important. I'm just not ready to start designing a building yet.
Yeah.
I want to see where all this stuff potentially could be, including potentially a school, because I do believe within 10 years, with the development at the Andrews Mill and Rankin Estates and some of these other things that are on the table, in 10 years, you're going to have 500 housing units that potentially could be built. Those 260 units that are going to get built off of Great Road, that's a reality. Woonsocket neighborhood doesn't walk away from those projects. They're in for the long haul, and they're going to build those. And we're going to be stuck with it, you know?
That's
And-
not a done deal, but,
Huh?
that's not a done
Well,
deal.
they're pursuing it full on, and, you know, I don't, you know, when they start doing those projects, they finish them.
Yeah.
Not right away, but they finish them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's potentials out there, and so we need to be wary of those things. And so I want to see what we're gonna do on that whole piece of property, the whole thing. And that's part of that master plan, before we even start, okay, let's see I want to see where all the pieces of the puzzle fit.
And, you know, as Councilor Vadney just said, you know, this master plan will essentially act as a roadmap, similar to our comprehensive plan for the town. It acts as a roadmap for us to go next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I don't think at this point at least myself personally, I'm not expecting that this is gonna be a one-and-done project. This is gonna be a long-haul project. And I know that the committee members are certainly dedicated to it in making sure that it's a successful long-haul project. So I'm in complete agreement. You know, if we need to change this RFQ to say master planning exercise, then we still do need the professionals to come on board to help facilitate the community input sessions, to draw things up. This would be a pretty significant project for me as an architect to take on alone, so we do need those professionals to come in and help us out.
If I may add, we need them to help prioritize and help us understand costs too, because we have a bunch of things that the community wants from this, and we can sort of say, well, more people want this, but it might not make sense for us as a community or on that particular piece of property because of cost considerations, because of other things that we want to do. Like Jeff said, we really need those professionals as part of this next step to help us take all of these things and figure out what's realistic, which of those things go together and make sense, how can we sort of, prioritize, use the funding for this project in a way that's going to make it most beneficial for the town. Because for us, it's throwing darts at a dartboard. Somebody wants a pool, great.
But Chris, I think right now you're too broad, you know what I mean? I was hoping that the committee would say, we narrowed it down, this is what we got, this is what we want, and what do you guys think? And then we either vote yay or nay, and if it's a yay, then we move on it. But it seems like, I can't picture what's going on here, because I'm not part of the committee. So, that means if I can't picture what's going on, then other people that in town can't picture what's going on. Maybe if you, I don't know, what, option 5, I don't remember what option 5 is, And I think we gotta see, so we can have a concept of what you're talking about. And I think that would be the case for everybody in town. They wanna see, we need a concept of what you've got, what you mean, before we go out and take it to the next step.
Well, I think you have the concepts in front, or you had the concepts in front of you a couple of weeks ago from when Weston and Sampson provided their presentation. And that's where they've ended.
But is that what you're saying now? Are you maybe we need a joint meeting where you guys say, okay, this is the plan. This is what we want to do. This is what the 9 of us finally agreed on or voted on. And this is this is the plan for Halliwell, and now we want to take it to the next step.
And I think this, essentially, we didn't take a final vote on concept number 5, but we were in unanimous agreement that was what we were moving forward with.
Okay.
So if you'd like us to have a final vote on that, we can certainly have our next meeting, have a vote to move that back to you folks, that we would.
And then you come and you show us what concept 5 is and what you want, what you want to do, and.
I mean, yeah, because honestly, we're now at concept number 5 that was provided by Weston and Sampson, and now we're ready to further develop that into a more developed master plan.
So maybe when you take that vote and the committee is ready to do that, maybe we can have a joint meeting or a workshop so that we can have this dialogue go back and forth.
Sure.
Because I'm also wondering, on the committee, is anyone looking for any funding or any grants or anything like that for this project? Because I know before this administration, with COVID, they were giving out all these outdoor grants, like, towns were putting in for grants and getting all this money for outdoor things, and I know we didn't take advantage of any of that. So, it would have been, something like that where this committee, that could be something they could be looking for, that could work with this property,
Yep.
However it is, and write some grants, and maybe we can get some funding, or, and try and help it along as a community aspect of it,
Right, and that's the hope, that as we continue to move forward, that we wanted to bring in Mark, our new town planner, into the fold as well, because, Councilor Vadney's assessment with things dropping off with Mr. Kravitz when he left, it is somewhat accurate. It did leave a little bit of a void, and it put a little bit more of a burden on the committee to work with Weston and Sampson and understand where each side was coming from, without Tom kind of mediating that. So I am certainly, it was one of the questions I asked every applicant for town planner. how well are you at writing grants? So we certainly are going to be looking to Mark and Bobby to help us out a little bit more in that aspect as well.
Yeah, that would be great, because you go to a lot of communities and you hear about all this stuff they got with grant money, and I don't think we take part of that at all, and we should be getting our fair share, but we just have to make sure we have someone who can write them.
Certainly.
We may be able to get like DEM grants to put
Right,
in
just
trails,
something to
trails and
help
stuff like
and-
that, and if you just how you write them up.
Right, maybe do some open trails in there and have their assistance and, you know, but I think we have to try, because I don't really see us getting
Oh,
many grants in
I
this town. And
agree.
I just think it's because we just, no, we don't have a grant writer, so it's kind of every department's on their own. And I think we really need to focus on, there is money out there, and we're just not utilizing it.
Mhm.
Steve, do you want to say something? Anybody else have any questions or comments? I don't know if anybody's ready to make a motion on this or not, but I'd like to, personally, I'd like to look it over a little bit further and a little,
Sure.
you know.
I would ask, request that, I know at your last town council meeting, you had tabled the abatement topic. I would request that that be on your next town council agenda, so that way, that abatement testing
And that will be on, that would definitely be on there.
doesn't get left
Yeah,
by
we
the
can-
wayside.
We have a number, we just didn't approve it because we're waiting to see if we had
Yeah,
a report already done.
We have literally turned the office inside out. Finance director has helped look for it, the administrative assistants look for it. I've gone on every drive at the, that we have. People have gone over to the old town hall looking for it. We have the two reports. I think, Jeff, you got the one from 2001.
The Jacobs report,
Finance
yeah.
director, we have that. We can make duplicates of that for everybody. We're not finding any other additional abatement. It's the obvious. The place needs to be leveled after we get the abatement done and just clear it out. There's no, that'd be throwing good money after no money. I mean, it's just a mess up. We all know that. So, the planning, I don't think that there's been any other abatements. And the local trust has looked at building 10 that we're all aware of, mold, asbestos, lead paint, critters, two-legged and four-legged running through the place. So, I don't know how to advise, but I think if you look at the first, suggestion by the Halliwell Review Committee, the HRC recommends to the council that buildings be abated and demolished expediently. You want to talk about phases? That's your first phase.
exactly.
There's nothing else. To follow up on the grant writing, Bobby, the assistant planner, has been taking grant writing seminars. She's excited to write grants. So she's researching, see what we need. So if there's any grant that comes to mind, let us know. Bobby will look at that and see if we can apply for it. There is a technique to writing grants. You keep it simple. You know, you can't be verbose in your grant writing application. So Bobby's well aware of it and willing to write grants, apply for them.
I mean, we got a grant, that's how we bought that last piece of property. We got $216,000
That's right,
to buy that piece of property from
Sousa.
the Sousa property,
Right.
110 acres. We got $200,000, half the cost.
Yeah, how long ago was that, though? How long ago was that, though?
That's
How long ago?
2 years ago.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
But I think part of the grant writing is also doing, you know, finding out what's out there.
gotta
I mean,
find what's out there,
we-
you're right.
You know, we can't say, you know, tell her what's out there and she'll write it. I think part of the writing of the grant is doing the research and finding out what's out there. So that's part of the whole grant writing, is finding them, doing the research, and then submitting them. So I think that part would come on to her role, and, you know, not us telling her what's out there and whatever we want to apply for.
Typical example, what you just said, Vice President. If I remember correctly, 2 years ago, you had, maybe a year ago, you had mentioned that the town of Smithfield was fortunate, wrote a grant for an outdoor skating rink.
Mhm.
These are the type of things that would have a nexus to the Halliwell property. There's
Right,
water,
and-
there's electricity, these are the type of things that we should be looking for.
And that was all the COVID money that they were just telling people, take it outside, so their people could go outside, and they
Yeah.
got a $5,000 outdoor, you know, skating rink, you know? And then I asked if we did anything, and we didn't submit for anything. So, you know, stuff like that, that's basically here, we're giving it to you,
Yeah.
and we don't even apply for it, you know, so.
No, I completely agree with that. That
So
would be,
we really need to, so if Bobby does that, hopefully she can really be on top of what's out there and what they're offering and, you know, and let you know if she finds something or
Sure.
vice versa, you know.
exactly, yeah. That can certainly be a topic on our next agenda as well, because there are some very eager folks on our committees to be spearheading that, so we can certainly add that to our list.
I think that we have things that we're working on, the abatement and that stuff, that they're in progress, they're working. Keep the Halliwell Review Committee talking, looking at investigating potential uses and whatnot. Start looking at the grant issues and what, I'm definitely not disengaging them.
No, not that.
They're not getting off that easy.
And don't take my questioning as an insult, please.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
I have one question. Cynthia, so something like that, this test that would have been done, like, where would that have been coded? Like in your GL, like,
We have funds from the bond, from the school bond. $400,000 was set aside for Halliwell.
That's right. Demolition.
So
Demolition
I
renovation.
I was gonna code it to that when I presented.
no, I mean, like, if, in the past, if they did one of these abatement reports or something, like, where would that have gotten coded against the bond, or, like, when you
No.
paid the
town-
invoice?
The town never did it. The town never did that on this Halliwell project. And if it would have been done in the past, it would have been done by the school
By the
department.
school.
And the only
Yeah.
thing that they used to have to do was an HERA report, right? And that's the only thing, and all that tells you is where the asbestos is and how to remediate it if it's friable. That's all it tells you.
Yep.
And so, as long as you keep wax on the floors and you don't pull things apart, it's not friable and it's okay. And so that's the only thing that they had. They had it on all their buildings, the HERA report. And they'll look at that when they do the abatement thing, to look and see where they've notified that there's asbestos. But abating it is different than the HERA report. And that's the only thing I think that was ever out there. And it's not really what we're looking for.
I double-checked with Superintendent CP today, and I said, Mike, can you just double-check to see if there are any abatement reports? Because there's none.
No, just those are HERA reports, and
Yeah,
it's not
that
an
was it.
abatement report.
So just to make sure, coming into this meeting, I wanted to make sure I had the
Yep.
most up-to-date. So we have what we have, and so we'll just move forward.
And the finance director got a price off the MPA, so we can,
Yep.
we can start that next meeting.
Are we putting down the next agenda to?
Yep.
Okay.
You got Cynthia, right? You have it?
All right, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we table this item of the discussion, vote, or other action on the Halliwell Committee recommendation, for the Halliwell Review Committee's recommendation on the Halliwell property after they have a vote, and then we'll come back and we'll schedule a workshop that the two committees can work with.
Sure.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
A second? Further discussion?
no discussion on the table.
Oh, no? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadeney?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks.
work with the clerk to find a good time to
That could
do
be,
the workshop.
right, thank you. Steve, this is going to be you. Discussion by council, vote or other action on scheduling a joint meeting with the North Smithfield School Committee and the Superintendent. Mr. Corriveau?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted this to be on the agenda tonight because I know that we met with them last year, right around, I think it was June, for the fiscal budget. And from, or at least since I've taken this seat, that's really been the only time that we've met with them. And obviously, we got off a little bit last year with having a surplus on the school side. I'm just a little bit concerned, and that's really why I wanted to suggest having a joint meeting with the school committee and the superintendent, was to go over the upcoming school budget, what they're doing to prepare for this next school year. Student enrollment numbers. Just in the last year, there's been more students that have either homeschooled or have gone to another district, and that money has followed the child, not necessarily on the middle school or the elementary, but more so on the high school. And then to what Mr. Vadney was saying, I mean, we know within the next 10 years or so, maybe even sooner, that the number of people moving to North Smithfield, building houses or moving into developments, that's going to have a direct effect on our school district. It could affect one of two ways. Either students that are coming in will decide to go to the school district, or families that come in will decide not to go to the school district. Either way, we have to be concerned with those financial numbers on the school and what the school is looking to do to prepare for that. And then a few other items that we discussed in the past. Obviously, we want to make sure that they are doing quarterly septic testing. We do need to make sure that they have access, Green Development has access to the concession stand on an immediate basis, whether that's just doing something simple like putting a keypad on the outside of the door that they can go in. And then one of the things that Ms. Alves brought up was turf maintenance plan and the availability to residents and the completion of the punch list. So I think given that there's quite a few items on there, kind of all over the place, I thought it would be appropriate to have a joint meeting with them sooner than later, whether we were looking at sometime in January or at the very latest, by mid-February.
Okay.
Any questions?
I can reach out to Mr. Lombardi and find out,
Get
let
some
him talk
dates.
to this
Get
committee.
some
yeah,
dates.
Get some dates.
We know that the 18th and 19th are out.
We know that. Anybody else? No? All right, thank you. We'll definitely get that going. Discussion by council, vote or other action on appointment of tree warden for 2022.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Stanley Zuba, Stanley Tree as the appointment of the tree warden for 2022.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Vadeney?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. Discussion by council, vote or other action on budget committee resignation, Mr. James Rowe.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. James Rowe from the Budget Committee, which is effective as of January 1st, 2022, and also that we send him a thank you letter.
Thank you. And that letter's in your packet? We have a second? Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara? Yes. Mr. Vadeney?
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. Discussion by council, vote or other action on distributing monies to dedicated accounts from the Iron Mine Hill Solar Farm. I put this on the agenda. Mr. Zelinski, if you can, I might call on you to help me with my historical, getting it historically accurate. But I'm gonna have to just start from the beginning. I'll try to make this quick. When Mr. Zelinski and I supported the solar farm up on Iron Mine Hill Road, we had one thing in mind. The money, excuse me, the money from that project was gonna go towards the purchase of the gold forest. And the upkeep of the gold forest. And anything that was left over from that money would go towards activities and such for the senior citizens. And that was the whole purpose, that was the whole reason why we supported that. We were gonna be basically taking money from private property that the public cannot use, and we were gonna be purchasing public property that everybody can use for 100 years, 150 years. It was gonna be a gift to the generations. So, Mr. Zelinski, who was vice president at the time, and Mr. Soers and I met with Mr. Gold a number of different times, and we finally came to an agreement that we would bring back to the council for for their approval, a number. We finally came up with a number. At the time, we were getting a $400,000 grant from DEM to purchase that property. Timing being what it was, I did not get reelected. New members of the council came in that did not support the purchase of the property, and long story short, we didn't, I'm not saying, but anyway, long story short, we didn't get the property, all
We
right?
did support purchasing the property.
All
We
right.
actually made a purchase and sales agreement. We were the only council that made a purchase and sales agreement on that property.
Hold on a minute. The agreement that you made was never, Mr. Gold
He never
considered it
accepted,
an insult.
he never accepted it, but we made one.
All right, you made an offer. Okay. So anyway, Mr. Zelinski and I and Mr. Soers, we had a number that we felt comfortable bringing back to the council. The new council came in, Mr. Zelinski presented that number to the new council, and that was, you discussed it with the new council.
In executive session, yes?
We discussed the number, but you didn't bring it to us. Mr. Gold brought it back to us.
Well, regardless, it was discussed in executive session.
Yes.
And let me just go back to a comment you said. If I were Mr. Gold, I would have rejected that offer, which he did. And if you wish, you can go on some of the Facebook pages, because I'm still under executive session, but if you want to see, if people want to see what really happened, you could search it out on Facebook pages, because he was not operating under executive session.
I understand that,
Paul, I'm not looking to point fingers or cast blame on anybody, I'm just trying to get some.
but we did make an offer,
Okay,
just to be clear. We made an offer.
you made an offer. All right. So, anyway, so it doesn't happen. So then it turns out that, a short time later, we find out that they want to put a solar farm on the property. Well, it didn't pass zoning. Now, this is not about the Gold property. I just want to let you know what I'm talking about here tonight is not, I'm just trying to give you some historical background on this. And the reason being is because if the intention of that solar farm was to purchase open space, I want to, even though the Gold Forest might be off the table now, I still think that it's important that the intention, we follow through with that intention, and the majority of that money should be earmarked towards open space, with also a percentage of that money going towards activities and such for senior citizens, such as possibly adding an addition onto Scouters Hall. What I'm looking for here is support, and discussion, to come up with a number that everybody feels comfortable with. I'm thinking more of like an 80-20 or 85-15, with the majority going to the open space. But something that we can come up with, all agree with, turn to the solicitor, ask him, once we come up with that agreement, ask the solicitor to draw up an ordinance. He'll bring it back to us, and we'll just carry it through the regular process of an ordinance with 2 hearings and a public hearing and a second reading. So that's what I'm asking, and I'm open for discussion. I'm open for suggestions, but that's how we got to where we are today. Did you want to add anything to that, or?
I would just say that the solar overlay zone was already being threatened to be turned into residential, which would actually produce more impervious material, more fine particulate matter from heating units, cars, traffic, lights. It was probably making, and it is a placeholder right now for that property. So at the end of 10 years, at the end of the tax understanding we have with them, they potentially could come back and develop something over there. So right now, I think it's the best scenario is to take those funds and to use them to purchase open space. Now, I know you didn't say this, Mr. Beauregard, but I would say the Gold family, God rest Mr. Gold's soul, but the Gold family has been frustrated by the town's efforts, 2 towns' efforts. If Mrs. Gold was amenable to having a discussion with me and anybody else from council that wished to speak with her, I think that this would be a jewel in Northern Rhode Island's open space. It's a regional piece of property that folks in Burrillville, Smithfield, Lincoln, even though it's in our town, even though we'd be paying for the property, paying down bonds through the revenue coming in from the solar farm, there's always people out there, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. Well, maybe we wouldn't have Pulaski Park, Lincoln Woods, or any of these other places. Some forward-thinking people said, we purchased this land, and you've heard me quote Will Rogers, which was a vaudeville act. And my father drummed this into me. And Will Rogers would tour the country and say, buy land because they ain't making any more. We can build buildings, we can build schools, we can build police stations, and in a matter of time, they will have to be replaced. Open space doesn't have to be replaced. It is a gift that'll keep giving to generation after generation. The solitude of walking through there during the pandemic, when Mr. Gold opened it up to the public to walk through that property, it was a godsend for people who had COVID cabin fever. Can you imagine going up there? And if those of you that have toured the property, anybody that's walked on that property, you think that you're in New Hampshire. So I would just hope that the Gold family would consider this, because if this is gonna be earmarked toward open space, and there could be other open spaces in town, this would be a phenomenal capture, and we'd call it the Gold Farm, the Gold, whatever it's, we'd honor Mr. Gold and his family, and I think we try to acquire this property, if they'll entertain speaking with us. Got another year of this elected council. As Mr. Beauregard is fond of saying, elections have consequences. I don't know where you stand on this, but hopefully we can buy open space and leave it to our kids, our grandkids, and our great-great-grandkids. This is just an opportunity we won't see again. And of course, the Yardbirds will be coming out saying, we can't afford it. We cannot afford to not take advantage of this revenue. So I get passionate about it. Primrose is under attack now for development. It's really pretty much the remaining open space we have in town. So just consider that and understand what Mr. Beauregard's attempting to do here.
I'd also like to point out too that, so the money that the annual money that we would have coming in from the solar farm would be $271,000, $271,950. We have a budget of $47,450,563. $271,000 in a $47 million budget is nothing. But that kind of money directed into a fixed account, earmarked for something very specific, can do a lot of good. You throw it in the general fund, it's going to be pennies off someone's tax bill. I think it would be a shame, and this is not a tangible tax. This, unlike a tangible tax, this does not go down. This is guaranteed money. This is the fixed money. This is a fixed $7,000 a megawatt for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So this is not like National Grid, where that money got lower and lower every year. This is a fixed money, an agreement that we made, $7,000 a megawatt. Yes, it is.
It's a fixed number,
Yeah.
but it's a tax. The $2 premium that he's paying isn't. The $5 per megawatt is a tax. We went over this because we looked at it, the previous council, we looked at it, potentially putting it into the budget and using it for capital as a way to build up a capital account and not hit the taxpayers for it. But it is a tax. $5 of the $7 needs to go into the tax levy. The $2 bonus that he's giving us is separate in a pot.
So
That's
if
the
I may, Mr. President.
clarification, that's the clarification that I got the last time, 2
So
years ago or whatever.
with the development of Green Development Iron Mine, the grid has to put in substation and transfer stations. That's a tangible that no one's talking about. That will be taxed. We'll be receiving tangibles from that, a hefty amount too. I'm not a tax assessor, but that's some heavy investment being done by the grid. So let's not lose sight of that revenue coming in as well.
Well,
That's not directed to you, Mr. Vadnais, you know.
No, I'm not, I understand that, yes, there's another, National Grid is gonna pay, even though Green is putting it in, National Grid is gonna own it, and they're gonna pay a tangible on it, I get that. But I'm just clarifying that the full 7 isn't $5 of that because of what the state set up with the tax thing, that it's $5 per kilowatt or 5,000 per megawatt. When they put that in there, it's a tax. The $2 bonus he's giving us is not a tax. So it's not, it needs to go, and you can still divert it, or that's not the right word. We can still take it and put it into an account, but it needs to fall into the tax levy first.
Well, that would kind of
needs to
that would
fall
mess
into
you
tax
up, wouldn't it, Cynthia? That would mess you up big time if we started doing that.
But it has to.
That-
It goes,
I-
it goes into the levy, and then you can sit there and say, we're putting this much money into open space account.
Yeah, why wouldn't-
$200,000 into the open space account, we can do that.
This is something we would just budget, so, because it's all revenue, we have to account for the revenue. And then once we do our budget, we can always say, okay, just like it's gonna be maybe a CapEx line, 250,000, we wanna put aside for this, and we have a
But it,
restrict,
but it
excuse
counts,
me. Yeah,
it
one
counts
second.
toward the levy, it's not like free revenue. Burrville and Lincoln run with pilots, which are not tax revenue. They're payment in lieu of taxes, so it's not, so that's how Burrville takes the money from the power plant and does capital projects. That's how Lincoln does it with the casino. It's not a tax. It's a payment in lieu of taxes, so it doesn't count toward the levy.
So that's what we're doing.
You guys,
So they get, like, in Lincoln's case, they get like $7 million a year from the casino.
Okay.
It doesn't fall in their levy. They budget for it, and they count it as revenue, and they earmark where it's gonna get spent. Some of it's future, some of it is, road improvement and whatnot. Burrville does the same thing. In our case, this money falls into the tax levy, other than the $2. The $5 falls into the tax levy. We can still earmark it in the budget, but it counts as revenue in the tax levy, not just revenue. Follow me? You have different pools of revenue.
I follow you, but, are you saying that we would, a resolution then, I mean, an ordinance? See, I'm looking for an ordinance, because, we don't, if we just say that it's gonna be,
The
okay
ordinance
in the
could
budget.
I think the ordinance can only be on the $2. On that $2 premium that they're paying, the other part of it, you can't make an ordinance telling you what you're gonna do with your tax money, I don't think.
I mean, I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just think, Mr. President, the simplest thing is gonna make it a budget article.
Right.
A dedicated line item account, and, tied, in your mind, it's tied to that amount of money.
It's not committed though, that way.
No,
Then
it
the next-
is.
The
It's
next council
similar-
can come
it's-
along and just
no,
go,
no.
oh, no, we don't
It's
want
similar to
that
what we
anymore.
do in our capital budget, where we itemize $50,000 is going to a new engine at the fire department, comes out of Fund 20, correct? Is that the right number? Fund 20,
Whatever.
third-party billing? And so it shows as a capital expenditure that we put money in there, and it bills, we don't touch it, to buy a
Until-
rescue, to buy an engine.
Right, but until the next guy comes along, the next council comes along and says, you know what? I don't care about open space. I wanna do this with it, and then it's gone. Then it's
You
gone.
can't,
Yeah,
we can't change that.
You can't change it, because
can't change
it
that.
has to be part of the budget process, because however you look at it, it's still revenue, correct, Cynthia?
Yes.
So it's still revenue that we have to record in our budget, and we do our budget off of that. And then the expenses, when we go into the expenses with the budget committee, then they go through it. And we can suggest, and we can have a recommendation to the budget committee that we would like this amount of money in capital for open space, or whatever we want to name it. But it has to go through the whole budget process, because we also have to keep in mind that we have over $1 million that are out for collections, right? So that's revenue that's taxes and money that we thought we had and we don't have. So we're gonna have a hit there. So we have to make sure we have the money in our budget before we start putting money aside for this. It may only be a small amount, and we can't say every year we're gonna have that exact amount hitting that capital line, because we may not have that money, depending what happens. If we do take this, well, we're gonna obviously take this hit of $1 million, and say 50% of that are people that have passed away. Until we take those people off our roll, we're still getting that revenue. So we have to make sure that person's off our roll, because now we're getting an actual number, because we still could be getting inflated revenue that we don't have. So we have to go through the whole budget process and recommend that we would like a certain pot of money, but to say we're gonna do that every year, we can't, because the budget is a moving item, and we can't back into the budget on just one number. There's too many other things that play with it. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but,
And then if there's a surplus at the end of the year, we can say, okay, we're gonna direct the finance director to move that money into that account because we had a surplus. So then every year, hopefully, everyone else in that position, or the administrator will kind of push for it to go into the open space, so we can continue building on our open space in town. But until we have the whole budget process and we know where we stand, we can't just start with that number and work around it.
Cynthia? Yes. When we were discussing this the other day, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? When you were discussing this the other day, this never came up.
Well, I was actually comparing it to Lincoln, but I didn't realize that they're on a pilot, and I was actually gonna contact the finance director for Lincoln and find out how they deferred the money from Twin Rivers over to a capital fund. And I didn't get a chance to do that, but the tax assessor did, reach out, well, she also reached out to, who was she supposed to reach out to? Was it Northeast to find out?
No, that was something different.
Okay. So, I still have to get my hands around this, and I really want to talk to the CPA, also the auditor, and how this would work. Because I think Councilwoman Alves is correct, that it does have to go through the budget process. But I was thinking of it as a pilot program, like Lincoln, where they put it in a different fund and.
It still goes
and
through
do
the
it.
budget process,
Right,
but it doesn't
but
count as,
as a
part of
levy.
your 4% levy cap.
I'm
though.
sorry, I meant the levy. When I'm saying that
Right,
through the,
yeah.
what I told Council President was, maybe we don't have to put it through the levy, we can bill it separately, and like Lincoln does, and then put it through a different process.
The $2 we can.
Right.
But the $5 we can't.
Right. But I
$5
still don't-
is a
If you
tax.
put this money in the general fund, it's gone. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, it's gone. It's gone. Forget about putting it towards open space, forget about buying anything nice with it. You put this money, which was the original intent, if you put this, how much was it, how much did I say now? It's 271 into the general fund, it's gonna get swallowed up, it's gone. Forget about using it to purchase more open space. It's gonna be pennies off your tax rate. Yes, it is.
It doesn't yeah, but the point is,
No.
it doesn't have to be, you can still budget for it.
Listen, Richard, did you want to speak on this? Yeah, come on up.
No, we don't have the money.
I'm Rich Keene,
Do that, we can
live at
keep
7
up.
Bamford Street, and thanks for the
I have to
opportunity to
look.
talk. But,
Hold on.
you know, there's some mechanics here that you're going to have to work through. First of all, I'm 100% behind putting money aside in some way for open space here in town. Where I think the forests that are in town, and mostly in Primrose, but there are other parts of town where we still have forests that we could potentially save. It's important, because as Mr. Zwolinski stated, once they're developed, they're gone, you know, they're gone forever. So if we can acquire some open space while we still have a window of opportunity, I think that would be a wonderful thing
Yeah, that's what I'm
to
looking
do for the town. The mechanics is something you're gonna have to sort through.
We still gotta pay for it.
If you can create some kind of a restricted account that you can put money into, that once it's in that account, it can only be spent for open space, I think that would accomplish what we all want. So, there's gotta be a way to do it. I mean, we're not the only
That's what I'm saying.
community that's trying to
Well,
do
it can be in
something
a
like this.
restricted account, but it has to be that we put it into that
Put it in the,
account,
right.
and that, like, you know, like we did with Maury Tower, there's so much money in Maury Tower,
Right.
and so until it gets to the point that that project's done or it's not gonna happen, then that money can be moved somewhere else, but
Right.
it can sit on the and Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can sit on the balance sheet as open space money.
Yes.
Or whatever we wanna
Right.
call it, and any surplus that we have, as long as everyone on the council agrees, that the surplus can go there. And we can also budget that line
Right.
item when we budget and say, okay, all right, it's a tight year, let's start with 50, but if we have a surplus, then whatever's remaining goes there. As long as it hits that line item, it's gonna sit there until somebody goes in and,
Right.
you know, there's no interest, but it's gonna have to be approved by the council to move it. So
Well-
not one person can just come in and say, I wanna move this money to road surfacing or whatever, you know, it has to stay there until it comes before the council.
Right, but if you create this account by ordinance, it'll be a little bit more difficult
Exactly.
for a town council, subsequent town council to say, okay, well, we've got this money here, we can take a vote and,
Can't do it, you can't do it with that, though. We have so many accounts like that. We do it for reval, we do it for fire trucks, we do it for rescues, we do it for a number of things where we put money aside every year, it builds up, it sits there in those accounts, so when the bill comes due, you're not paying it in one shot. And we can do the same thing with this, through different ways. We put it into the budget, we go through the process, it's always there. Once it's in there, it stays in there. There's nothing we can ever do sitting here. Here's a short story. One time a council was making a decision, and one of the councilmen asked the solicitor, what would stop a road council from coming in and changing this decision? He goes, who's to say you're not a road council? That was his response back. So we can do something, and there's nothing that we can do that will tie a future council to what they do with the budget. They can always just write a new ordinance to go back and undo what we do. There's nothing that we can do to prevent that. We can hope that they're gonna follow through and continue with the thing, just like we started doing with it before I got here, before you got there, they started a road resurfacing project. We've continued that. We've continued with things like that. We need to just keep doing those things, funding the OPEB liability. Every year that we put money into those things, it sits there in those accounts. We can continue doing that, and we have to hope that we set the example and others will follow. This will be the same thing.
So would we have to have it set in that account to, like you said, money is set aside, each year towards the cost of a new fire truck or whatever. Well, obviously, that's meeting a bill and expense several years down the road. So would we have to set it for basically that amount that President Beauregard said, to a max of essentially 2.8 million? That amount times 10 years? Is that what I'm?
No, you'd have to do it based on the budget of that year, so you have to
Okay.
try and budget for it. I mean, depending how it fits in, like it may not be that full 270 every year, it might be a little less, but then at the end of the year, if you have a surplus, as long as the council agrees, then you move the surplus to that line item. So, if the council's all on the same page and everyone is looking for open space, then every time there's a surplus, at the end of the year, people are gonna put it into the open space line. But you can still budget every year, probably not that big of a number, but some sort of number, and then depending how the budget plays out, if you still have some room at the end, then maybe you can go back and put some money there and take some money out somewhere else. It's just going through the budget like we did, And then going through the balance sheet, there may be items there that, are old and we don't need them anymore. We're gonna say, okay, we wanna reclass this whatever amount of funds to the open space line. And then we agree and we approve the finance director to make that change. So then it grows that way too, but to back into a number in a budget it's almost impossible to do that. Because we're building the whole budget around that one number, and that's not really.
Mr. Keane?
and the beauty of that is, of not tying it to one particular source of revenue, is that you could potentially put more money in than what is generated by that project, or solely that project, so,
That won't
that's-
happen.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the council, because, and I go back to 2 years ago, or a year, less than a year ago, a year and a half ago, maybe, we bought the Sousa property, and we bought it near the end of the year. We had surplus monies, we had that grant money, so we didn't actually go in and borrow money, and we didn't take money from something else. It was surplus money that they reached into. We authorized it to 214,000 or 217,000, and we had the matching grant from DEM to purchase that property. It showed nothing on the tax impact on it. We bought it with monies that we saved over the year. And so in this case, you could take some of that if you wanted. If you were setting up a fund for that, you could do that. Not every piece of property that you're looking to buy is gonna cost you $1.6, $1.8 million. They're not all like that. Like I say, we get 110 acres for $400,000.
And once again, the word grant comes up again tonight, so as long as we have our eyes and our ears open to what's out there, and we are,
Any
constantly
DEM grant is gonna
applying.
need a matching funds, whether it's 50, 80, 200,
you know what?
400,000.
A matching
It needs
fund-
matching funds, and so if we set up an account that has matching funds, we never have a problem. We always know that we can do that.
Right, but at least we're getting matched, right?
Right.
So it's not all coming out of our pockets. So
Correct.
now we can maybe get two
Doubles
things,
your purchasing power.
but on the balance sheet, I would just put potential open space or future open space, so we're not tying it to the gold property or whatever, and, you
Right.
know, so it's all open, so if a lot came up that we wanted, we wouldn't be held to like, well, we can't use this money because that's set aside for this particular.
One property.
It's open space, you know, future open space
Mhm.
purchases, and everything just goes into there, and then, but I think it's really important is we need to keep our eyes open for the grants and any other funding that we can get.
Well, I gotta say, it's a shame, okay, let's bring us back to to where we started. It's a shame that you guys did not buy that property now, because now we basically cleared out all that forest, and we put up a huge solar farm for what? To throw a couple $100,000 a year into the general fund? That was not the intention behind it. So now, all of a sudden, that money's gonna get just thrown into the general fund, and it's gonna get swallowed up. Oh, we have an extra 10,000, extra 20,000 this year, let's throw it into the open space fund. It's not gonna do anything. So I'm gonna say, you guys lost a huge opportunity when you didn't buy this land when we should have, because now it's for nothing. It's all for nothing. Yeah, please.
Carol Ayala, I'm a town resident, 110 Log Road. I'm a resident, but I'm also a member of the Land Trust, so I hope I'm kind of speaking on behalf of most of our members. I'm glad to hear what Mr. Beauregard is saying tonight, that it looks like there's a lot of interest in open space, and the mechanics, I understand now, is the catching point. But I'll just throw this idea out there. What would happen if you used your open space bond money to purchase something and then use this tax revenue to pay that bond every year?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's the only way we can commit the money, is if we're committed to paying off a
If
bond.
that would work,
Right.
I'm sure that would be certainly acceptable to me
Yeah.
and anybody that's interested in open space. And let me just, I had a few other comments now.
Go
I
ahead.
know we got sidetracked on the mechanics of the whole thing, which is unfortunate. I thought it was more clear cut, you know, here's money, here's how you can
It
spend it.
never is.
It never is, yeah. But one thing to keep in mind is that our town lags behind all our neighboring towns in the percentage of open space that we have. So we really should be upping our percentage of open space. I mean, it should be an important thing to have in this town, just as important a component as good schools, good services, good open space availability. And as you know, it offers great health and environmental benefits to the residents. Companies, I've read articles on this, companies and families relocating are often drawn to communities that have great open space availability and recreational places to hiking and trails, and it's an important thing that families look for when they're moving. And one thing that we've noticed with the land trust trails this year is there's been a tremendous uptick in the use on the trails because of COVID. People are rediscovering the outdoors, and I've just met a lot of people on these trails now, and they're like, this is wonderful, I never really thought of doing this before. So you've got to think of that as something your town is offering to the residents. The rest of my comments were about, you know, how I understood too that when the solar thing was about to be approved, there was a lot of discussion that money would generate money for open space. So I hope you guys can somehow work out the mechanics to make that happen, because I think that was the underlying feeling, that this sacrifice of this huge forest would then generate money to preserve other forested areas, preserve and protect other forested areas in the town for the benefit of the public. So I hope you guys can figure out the difficult part of it.
But
Thank you. Cynthia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted, she actually mentioned it, I just wanted to mention that back in 2013, there was an open space bond approved.
$3 million.
Well, we closed on it, I'm sorry, you're right. We closed on, it was for 3 million, we closed on the first portion of it, where we, I don't know what we bought, but it was.
400,000, we bought the property behind Dowling Village. Booth
Yeah,
Mountain.
it was 545,000 that we took the bond out
Right.
for, and I think there was some kind of match.
There was money coming from DEM, it was like
Okay.
950,000 for the whole property.
So that's
that
what
they
we're
bought?
paying on the bond now.
Shumley wrote the grant. Dr. Carol Shumley wrote the grant.
Yeah, we were on the council.
Yeah, Kim was on the council,
Mhm.
the vice president, and it's a partnership between the town
Yeah.
and the land trust.
Right.
So that it ties it up
Joint
around-
ownership,
Yeah, to protect it, to stay in perpetuity, so it doesn't
right.
change hands.
But what I'm getting at is that we still have 2.4 million available to buy open space with this bond. We just have to get the updated interest rates and to see how much it's gonna cost us annually, but it's just a thought.
Okay.
It's a thought, we put thought into Cynthia.
Actually,
And we made an agreement with National Grid for an easement to connect the Souza property to the Booth Pond property. I mean, we walked it, I walked it with Rich, you were there, John. We walked that with
Yeah.
Rich, all that property, you spend a couple hours out there and get lost.
Follow up, if I may, on Carol's point. COVID brought about some good things, and it was people getting out on the trails, and they're repeat people, and they bring friends, so there's more trail hiking going on now than I can recall, so it's blossoming.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to acquire open space. It's not just the town buying it. We have a land trust. The land trust can approach landowners to get it bequeathed to them. I mean, you look at some of these places, and I don't want to say that we're in the same role as a Block Island, but Block Island has a land trust, and they get acres and acres and acres of land donated or gifted to them because people don't want to see it develop. And I don't know if we pursue that. And we did talk with David Gold, Gary and I, and the solicitor was there when we presented to him. We asked him if he would do certain things like that. He didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear it.
Well, I mean, the man has a right to make a profit. He doesn't have to give land, he doesn't have to give it away.
I understand that.
If I may, Mr. President, a landowner does have a right to sell the property, but one really must consider the work, the sweat equity that Mr. Gold put into this property, building those trails. That you can go from wetlands, you can go uplands, you can go open water spaces. History of the Piggery, where it just goes on and on. It's historical cemeteries. And it's accessible for many. You don't have to be a mountain hiking individual to go up there. There's level terrain. It does pose a problem for folks that really have mobility problems. But many people can enjoy this. So, again,
It's not for sale.
we're talking about the Gold property. I'm not sure Mrs. Gold and family would even entertain, but I'd be willing to reach out to her. And,
They have a purchase and sales on it. How do you get out of that?
well, no, that was for the solar farm, correct? But we should.
Different issue, but, yeah. But the point is that we can pursue land. If people approach us, we can buy property, but the land trust has the ability to approach people and work with DEM, you can put it into, I can't think of the term now, what they do with Christensen's, with the app. They protect it so it can never be developed, and you sell the development rights to it. And so there are a lot of options out there that people can use to do this stuff, and we don't have the same abilities as some other people do, but the land trust isn't a part of the town, understand that. It's not a slight, it's just, it's a reality, they're not part of the town, and they have ability to do those things more than we do.
I can tell you, without the land trust, the trail marking and the signage over on Blue Pond would not have happened.
I know.
The maintenance of the past would not have happened, so it's a great relationship working with the land trust. And again, to go back to Dr. Carol Shumley, she wrote the grant that helped us match to purchase that property, so. As much resources and as much skill sets that we can borrow from the land trust, I think it's just a great relationship to bring them on board with any open
Yep.
Carol, you're right, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I agree. So much for that, I guess. Okay, discussion by council, vote or other action on penalty tax adjustments. Mr. Jesus?
At this time, I'm requesting a penalty adjustment amount of $249.16 pursuant to the proposed penalty abatements scale that is presented on the document.
Mr. President, based on a recommendation of the Finance Director, I make a motion that we approve a penalty adjustment of $249.16.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara? Mr. Vadnez,
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. And one more, right?
Yes. At this time, I'm requesting tax adjustments on 3 deceased taxpayers in the amount of $207.62.
Mr. President,
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the tax adjustments in the amount of $207.62 per the recommendation of the Finance Director.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Alves?
Yes.
Mr. Corriveau?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara? Mr. Vadnez,
Yes.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes. Okay, I think we covered it up to executive session, right? Okay, executive session, discussion by council, vote or other action on Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. Pending litigation regarding opioid class action suit. 1, review Rhode Island memorandum of understanding between the state and cities and towns receiving settlement funds. 2, approve the execution of Rhode Island memorandum of understanding between state and cities and towns receiving settlement funds. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session at this time.
So moved.
Roll call, please. Oh, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes.